how it has to be related to other things. In today's terms also, perhaps you can relate. He believed that fixation on economic progress is inimical to the real progress. Okay. Though it must not be taken to mean that you should neglect economic sustenance. Again, I quote, no one has ever suggested that grinding pauperism can lead to anything else than moral degradation. So, saying that don't be totally fixated on economic progress does not mean its negation either. So, that's the moderate view one has to take. In the world of Gandhi, economic study would be much less concerned with what is and more to do with what ought to be. In the ensuing discussion to his talk, this talk is reproduced in his collected works. The ensuing discussion is reported that this is what they said. So that's why I say this. In the ensuing discussion to his talk, he reportedly remarked that if an economist did not investigate laws of God and show how to distribute wealth so that there might not be poverty, he was a most unwelcome intrusion on Indian soil. You say two things: that what he understood about the function of economics. Second, also it points to that economists are largely coming from outside at that point of time. Okay. There were some Indian economists, but it was being seen that how economics can help, say, Indian society. And those economists are not welcome in Indian society. That is what he is talking about. I think this also gives some pointers to the his view of the good life. Good life is not in the conventional sense acquiring material goods, okay, economic paraphernalia alone. Ultimately, all this is aimed at the moral upliftment. Uh, if you read some bit of the other people who have worked on Gandhi's economic ideas, there is also this understanding that Gandhi always placed the realization of self as the aim of life. Okay. And other things follow from that. Now, none of this says that you should be pauper, you should live in grinding poverty, and so on and so forth. But other things then follow from that, that what you put that, what is the purpose of life itself. Okay. So somewhere that has to be placed in the center if you are talking about economics also. Economics cannot be divorced from these larger concerns, larger objectives of life. Something I say about the individual and society, and that is where we'll find that something is common between modern economic theory and what Gandhi is talking about. Gandhi held that there was enough on earth for everybody's need, though not enough for anybody's greed. This is I think, perhaps known to everybody. This is one of the most widely quoted remark from Gandhi. Hence, he laid great emphasis on individual and his transformation. The greed, if one person has greed also, it can create a lot of problems. And if a lot of people are greedy, then one can imagine the kind of problem that we have. And perhaps he is saying that we are seeing that consequences of that. Man's happiness, again I am quoting from his later speeches, man's happiness really lies in contentment. He who is discontented with however much he possesses becomes a slave to his desires. And there is really no slavery equal to that of his desires. Being slave to one's own desires makes one a greater slave. And what is true for the individual is true for society. Quote ends here. Okay. Much earlier in his Swaraj, this is 1942, much earlier in his Swaraj, he had remarked, we notice that mind is a restless bird. The more it gets, the more it wants, and it still remains unsatisfied. The more we indulge our passions, the more unbridled they become. Hence, in his view, from this we get that first, the good life. Gandhi does not use this word. Here is my phrase, and maybe some other people use this phrase. See, good life is constituted by the objectives for the life, the aim of life that we fix. Okay. And there, this material possessions, economic progress, and all that, they become instruments to attaining this good life that you are talking about. And grinding poverty leads to moral degradation. So that, of course, also is object that we should not have grinding poverty for anyone in the society. We'll come in a few moments to this issue of how we manage our society that whether some people are giving a lot and some people are giving less. That is a far more difficult thing that we come to. We must come to that. How to grasp that thing is far more difficult. See, having a some kind of pat answer to that is easy. Okay. But trying to understand that is extremely difficult, and it is not always the economics can offer answer to that kind of questions. However, to continue with Gandhi's ideas, hence, in his view, task of economics is not merely to study human economic behavior as a bundle of given facts, but to work on principles of transformation for a well-ordered society. An indication of which, in his own words, is as follows. It's a quote again. In well-ordered society, the securing of one's livelihood should be and is found to be the easiest thing in the world. Indeed, the test of orderliness in a country is not the number of millionaires it owns, but the absence of starvation among its masses. Again, this kind of reflection or this kind of thing you find even today. Reflection in the sense that you find uh, how many millionaires and billionaires these days you talk about, not millionaires, and often we also talk about dollar billionaires. These do proudly many times say, and there is also critique of them. Both sides are there. That how can you talk about this when they are 29% or 30% or 36% number on that there is no unanimity. They are still living below poverty line. So this kind of concerns are even now talked about. He is also talking about the same thing. Important thing to note here is that economics as we study and practice, economics as a discipline is taken to be what we call in technical terms positive science or positive discipline. Positive here essentially, I am sure that many of you know, but let me just say that not everybody may know. Positive here is not in the any moral sense or any sense of desire. Positive in the sense that what is, we perceive that as it is. Okay. So reality that is given there, we try to understand reality as it is given to us. That is what we call positive science. Okay. As opposed to that, we talk about normative science. Normative is what it should be. Okay. So economics, sociology, history, all these disciplines, okay, as disciplines they are understood to be positive disciplines, positive science. But they must understand society as it is. It is not their business to say what it ought to be. But after having understood what it is, we can use it for normative purposes. So we can understand that how in a given system, if you change tax and subsidy, the terms that have been used earlier, what it will do to different sections of society. Okay. On the basis of that understanding, then you may decide that we are going to raise taxes or provide subsidies and so on and so forth, which is normative aspect. They're trying to influence, but this decision has to be taken by somebody on the basis of not what economics says, on the basis of the objectives that this entity, which is sitting outside economics, has set for itself. Okay. So it says that, let us say, we should have a less inequality in society. Now that objective cannot follow from economics itself. That must come from, you can say, political considerations, that may come from societal considerations, but this is sitting in terms of desirability outside economics. So this is how we perceive that. Gandhi is saying is that cannot be the role of economics. The role of economics should be that what ought to be, not what is. That study of what ought to be itself should be subject matter of economics. So that's it is saying something different from what even today in economics we do. So normative content is there, which is based on positive content. But positive content is the, you can say 98% of economics. But then we use it for policy purpose. As soon as we bring the word policy, we are in the normative ground. We are not in positive terrain anymore. That this is what we should do. As soon as we say should, okay. So should do means that there is some objective somewhere from somewhere coming. Gandhi is saying that this ought to be, should be the main concern of economics. Okay. On that line, we have not done much work because economics continues to be the way we have got it from the, say, world body or West, you can say, and we also build on that essentially. I will quickly say a few words about production and consumption and then technology, and then this part I'll finish here. This I say because this will also reflect on the basis of economic theory and the kind of thing that we find. Separation of production from consumption as a result of factory-based production system had inexorably led economics to become a science of scarcity. Since consumption became an independent slave to desires which are unlimited. Okay. If you take a textbook of economics from intermediate level onwards, this is the first thing that you learn. Resources of the world are limited and desires are unlimited. If you are trying to match two together, then scarcity is inevitable result. So economics becomes science of scarcity, that how to do best in the face of scarcity. So aim of economics remains noble, how to do best for society, but in the presence of scarcity. But why do we have the scarcity? Scarcity comes precisely from what Gandhi talked about, that there is enough for everybody's need. If our desires were based on that, if they are cultivated on that basis, then scarcity question perhaps will not arise. It might in some special situations, but as a general rule, scarcity question will not arise. But if you say that we have to satisfy desires, and desires are unlimited, okay. Mind is a restless world. Okay. If something is fulfilled today, I want more. Okay. If today 30 people listen to me, I want that tomorrow there should be 50 people. Desires can be in any arena. Okay. Then I want the whole world should be listening to me. Okay. So, short of becoming megalomaniac, this can continue like this. Okay. So, given that, economics become, and this is the very first thing in any economics textbook you will find, that basically it is the science of scarcity. In this scarcity, then you have to find best ways of doing it. Things are limited, you can waste them or you can reuse them efficiently. And that is another reason that you find that in economics, one of the greatest point about that how certain things can do something is that how efficient they are. There is a great emphasis laid on the idea of efficiency. Okay. For last 20 years, I am sure you may have heard that for last 20 years. Many of you would not have heard things 20 years ago because perhaps you would have been too small to hear. But you must have heard that since the opening of economy came, this has been one of the mantras that it leads to efficiency. It does not mean that you don't need efficiency. Again, we should not go to the opposite conclusion either. But from where this is emerging, that is very important to understand. Gandhi was perceptive enough to realize the problems arising out of it and spoke at length about the importance of localized production system. His emphasis on villages as fundamental units of society and his conception of organizing society into oceanic circles was motivated by such non-predatory social and economic relations. I will not have it here, but I am sure that some of you may have come across his perception of the village as existed in his time, and a lot of them even today as they exist. In response to Nehru, when Nehru said that the villages are dung heap of superstition, okay, jealousy, all kinds of negativities, okay, and you place so much importance on villages. He responded by saying that the villages I am talking about are not only in my imagination. These are not villages, they actually exist in society. You are absolutely right the way you are describing villages. Why does he place so much importance in villages? He continued throughout his life that a good economic system must be based on a network of villages. Cities should have a marginal role, minor role. They should not as today, they should, if at all, they should serve village economy. The reason is that he believed, and not as rigorously as in terms of a mathematical theorem, it is possible to show that villages per se can be, whether they are today or not, they can be basis of a non-violence based economic system. A city based system has very little chance of being based on non-violence. Okay. This I think, although I don't have this quote as I said here, but this will become clear when we talk about towards the end of what I'm saying. That why it is so that, and that is the reason that he laid a lot of emphasis on villages, not because they were today or in his time, they were based on non-violence, they were based on only good values, but it is possible to conceive villages to be based on that. But cities, if it is a society is based on cities, one is not saying there should not be any cities, but society is essentially an urban society. Then it is difficult to imagine that how they can be based on these values that we are talking about. The society can be based on that. So that is essential difference between an economy which is based on urban structures, essentially, that is dominant structure, and an economy where rural structures are the dominant structures. Okay. We are not talking about one or the other. About localized production, he says, this is again based on the principle of non-violence. That's why localized production is superior to what is a mass production. He says, I would categorically state my conviction that the mania for mass production is responsible for the world crisis. Granting for the moment that machinery may supply all the needs of humanity, still it would concentrate production in particular areas so that you would have to go in a roundabout way to regulate distribution. Whereas if there is production and distribution both in the respective areas where things are required, it is automatically regulated. And there is less chance for fraud, none for speculation. When production and consumption both become localized, the temptation to speed up the production indefinitely at any price disappears. If you can't sell anything beyond your village, okay, then you cannot think of being a sole corporation selling your micro processor chips. Yes.
Is it like regulated to sell beyond the village?
Sorry?
Is the proposal to regulate selling beyond the village?
Absolutely. See, it is, perhaps we can come to that in the introduction, okay? That what should we be thinking about this? What one is talking about is that essentially if your structure is such that you are producing for the locality. See, locality, whether it should remain a village or it can be a constellation of villages. See, these things always are dynamic. Okay. They cannot remain fixed for all times to come. Okay. The ideas, for example, just 1,000 years ago might have been very valuable and potent idea. In the same form, even if essentially it remains good, it may not be implemented in the same form, say in a different context. Okay. Let me tell you why I am saying that. Okay. Say 50 years, 60 years ago, if you looked at villages, perhaps you would have found that a large part of their needs were satisfied by what is produced in the village. But it was not 100%. If you take it to the extreme that it has to be 100%, then you are going to have a great difficulties. There is a great difference between 80% and 100%, or 90% and 100%. Okay. That 10% can make your life much happier, for which you depend on outside people. Okay. But having, say, 25% local, 75% outside, can also have its consequences. So, in absolutes, if you start thinking, then we are going to have a great difficulty. Okay. So, what kind of regulation one has to think of? We will come to that. Okay. The essential idea is that in what way we have, or what is the structure of your economic activities? Okay. What is the structure within which the economic activities take place? And you can have both formal structure and you can have informal structures. Okay. Right. We can find countless examples of informal structures which govern, not codified in constitution, not codified in any laws. Okay? That kind of thing also we can find. Right? But very valid question that if you are going to say that it is a localized production, every production is somewhere, or the localized production means that it is meant to serve the locality. Localized this. He believed that this was necessary though not sufficient condition for establishing a morally informed society, economy, based on truth and non-violence. What I mentioned a little while ago. He had put much faith in an economy based on local market. The aforesaid views are obvious of the glorious indictment of growth fetishism by Gandhi. In Mahatma's conception, relations between labor and mill owners are also governed by the same principles of relationship, mutuality, and non-violence. So these underlying things that we have to see when we look at trusteeship kind of ideas, and how a mill owner should view workers and how workers should view mill owners, and uh, how you can have a good system there. It does not mean that there is no case ever for dispute. When disputes arise, we have to think about that also, what is to be done. Uh, he claimed that he had been the most successful of agitators, whether in Champaran or in Ahmedabad textile strike of 1918. Hence, remained convinced that the cause of labor is advanced when they proceed from a position of inner strength. If you want at later stage what is the meaning of the inner strength of the labor, we can go into that. But essentially what he is saying is that he is claiming that he has been one of the first successful agitators in the industrial labor movement. 1918 is quite early. In fact, communist movement starts, the party is formed in 1925, Communist Party of India. So those movements also start a little later. And he, of course, he led the strike. There was also this, what do you say, intermediate process where somebody was called and so on and so forth. So he was not averse to leading as it should not be mean, it should not be taken to mean that you should have relations between mill owner and labor based on mutuality and relationship and interaction with each other. It does not mean that there will never be any reason for saying that enough is enough. We don't accept this kind of thing. Okay. What is the basis of that? That is the important thing. Lastly, a few words about technology before I just round up. It is widely believed that Gandhi was negatively inclined against machinery. His views have to be considered carefully as these have deep relation to economic activity and systems. So he is quoted very widely, this also comes in this Swaraj, to say that it is not that our ancestors did not know how to make machinery, but they knew that once they give into machinery, then they will enslave by machinery. That's why they did not invent. So that is very widely quoted. And his other views about that, what they should do with machines and so on and so forth, it is perceived that he was against technology in particular. So it is a useful question to look at, especially when you are talking about his economic idea. It is quite clear from his comments on technology scattered over large bodies of collective work that his opposition to machinery was to be understood from a moral perspective. What led to exploitative relations among men and between men and nature was unacceptable. I am sure that the one, your organization concerned about nature and environment as well, right? That is in the name of your. Okay. So this is also not between men and men alone, but men and nature as well is important. That what technology does to that. There is need to distinguish between the ideal to which we ought to strive at all times and the adjustments that become necessary due to our own limitations and imperfections. It is the guiding principles that are important. The technological innovations that lead to reduction of drudgery, especially in women's work, were not only welcome in his view, but were to be encouraged. That he was not opposed to technology is a fundamental, in a fundamental sense, that for instrumental reasons he opposed technology of various kinds, but not in fundamental sense, should be obvious from the following. His quote, I would revolutionize college education and relate it to national necessities. There would be degrees for mechanical and other engineers. So somebody who is opposed to technology should not be talking about encouraging mechanical engineers and other engineers. They should be, back to quote, they should be attached to the different industries which should pay for the training of the graduates they need. Thus, the Tatas would be expected to run a college for training engineers under the supervision of state. It may be recalled, this quote is over, it may be recalled that he honored a machine design contest. He announced a machine design contest with a prize of rupees 1 lakh, 7,700 pounds. So it was a global contest on July 24-29 for innovative design of charkha, with detailed specifications of what is expected design. There is a whole lot of contests that whatever terms and conditions that why it should be fulfilling the design. So whether his heart was there in this contest announcement or not is difficult to say today, but he was not opposed to innovation and improvement. In fact, about Charkha improvement, he was very clear that we should have improvement of Charkha, and similarly other machines. He also had clear views on the possible decentralizing role of technology. He was opposed to all forms of centralization, whether it is economic, political, social, etc. This was itself the ground for his basic opposition to centralization of power flowing from large-scale production, because that also concentrates power in the hands of few. On Mr. Ford's favorite plan of decentralization of industry by the use of electric power, conveyed on wires to the remotest corner, with hundreds and thousands of small, neat, smokeless villages dotted with factories run by village communities, Gandhi was asked, after describing that Ford as this plan, Gandhi was asked, how far will it meet your objection? Okay. About centralization of power and so on and so forth. Because it is this, you can relate it today to the internet. The same argument is given for internet, that how much democratizing and decentralizing role internet performs today. To this, Gandhiji answered, my objection won't be met by that. Because while it is true that you will be producing things in innumerable areas, the power will come from one selected center. That in the end I think would be found to be disastrous. It would be placed such a limitless power in one human agency that I dread to think of this. The consequences, for instance, of such a control of power would be that I would be dependent on that power for light, water, even air, and so on. Exactly what is happening today. Okay. That I think would be terrible. Just think that US government, Google is located in USA. They just nationalize Google and they say that we'll run it as we please. Okay. Today the amount of data, not only your mails, amount of data that a lot of us keep on Google, what will happen to that? This may not happen, but I think this is a concentration of power that one can think of. What is the potentiality of that kind of concentration of power? These thoughts indicate a framework for understanding, which is what I have been emphasizing, and answering questions related to technology, industry, economic organization, etc. How relevant such considerations become today in the context of presumed decentralized role of information technology, okay, we can imagine today. Okay. From these brief gleanings from Gandhi's work relevant for economic ideas, it is possible to form certain broad principles that a Gandhian economic thought related work must incorporate. Those of us who are interested can ponder over this. The three interrelated aspects are important for developing a Gandhian critique of economic theory and for attempting to construct new economic theories. Number one, importance of taking a long view regarding economic actions. On these three I can speak as and when you ask me, but I'll say just a few words about that. See, when one is talking about, say, what technology does to nature, okay, and when we talk about the like objective functions in economic theory that we talk about, okay, there is can be conflict between short-term optimization, as we say, that short-term maximizing of benefits, and in the long run, what will happen to the same people as well as to the society, groups, and so on and so forth. Okay. And there, of course, what happens to, see, immediately it may not hurt me if, say, a plot of land becomes infertile. Okay. I may move to the next plot of land. It's possible that immediately it may not. But in the long run, this kind of activity is going to hurt everybody. Okay. Of course, even that is instrumental view. Even that is not a moral view in whatever tradition that we talked about. Okay. They may have legitimacy of their own, not because in the long run they are important for our survival. Okay. Even if our survival is there or not, one can take a view that they have their own autonomy, various beings and non-beings as well. Okay. Like here sometimes people talk about rocks, that they have been there for millions of years. There are only people who will take view that destroying rocks may ultimately lead to disastrous consequences for human beings. One view to oppose destruction of rocks. Other may be that whether it leads to or not. Okay. Legitimacy that they should remain is in its justified in its own terms. Okay. So one can take both kind of views. But long-term view is important for developing any critique of existing economic theories from Gandhi's point of view and developing new theories. Taking responsibility for the consequences of one's actions. The emphasis on individual. Yeah. Last, of course, this has been also, I'm sure that everybody knows about this. Non-separation of means and ends, or insisting on at least as much sensitivity of means as of ends. Last, it is pertinent to address the issue of what can be expected of an individual rekindling work on Gandhi's economic ideas. With an economic system based on Gandhian perspective and ideas provide solutions to the problems of present economic systems. It is extremely difficult to provide answer to this question. An initial response can only be that the elements that such a perspective lays emphasis on do address these problems. Gandhi had immense faith in the possibility of transformation of individual and the innate goodness of human beings. The task will be to evolve institutions that help in converting the potentiality into actuality. At the very least, efforts in the direction will be worthwhile. Now, let me just say a few words only about the way mainstream economics, as we say, approaches the problem. One thing that is common that I must say is that it lays emphasis on individual. Okay. It talks about that individual knows what is best for the individual. Okay. Somebody else taking decision on behalf of individual can lead to all kinds of problems. Now, from individual we can move to the what we in economics say economic agents. Okay. They may be human entities, they may be corporate entities. Okay. So, in that case, of course, those agents, they know what is best for them. Okay. So, economic system must provide a framework in which they can work. For example, see, suppose there are two entities, like, what is your name?
Election ready.
Huh?
Election.
Election ready, and Naresh. Okay. So, about some things we voluntarily come into agreement that we will have this transaction. Yeah. Forget about the nature of transaction, but which does not impinge on somebody else. Assume that also. Okay. Directly it does not impinge on. Now, since we have agreed for that transaction, logically it is very difficult to argue against the following proposition that both of us must be seeing something good for ourselves in that. Okay. Otherwise, voluntarily will agree for this transaction. Okay. So now, this is one fundamental principle in economics, that if people are voluntarily agreeing to do something, then their state after doing that must be at least as good as their state before they undertook that activity, voluntarily. Perhaps it will be superior, it will be better. Okay. So if the entire activity is organized on the basis of these voluntary transactions, okay, then perhaps we move to better state. If millions of people are involved in that, millions of agents, economic agents are involved in that, then almost certainly we'll move to some better state in the following sense. That if everybody is not better off, then everybody must be at least as well off because they are choosing to do that. And even if 1 or 2% become better off, the second state is better than the first state. Okay. We use the word Pareto optimality for this kind of changes. Pareto improvement, and if nothing can be made better in this sense, then that state becomes Pareto optimal. It is a very widely used term in economics, but meaning is very simple. Okay. Now, suppose we enter into transaction. Okay. Transaction is that I give him something, he gives me something back. Now, I give him, even if he has to give it, say, 5 minutes later or 1 minute later. Okay. There is always a slight delay in the transaction. He says that you didn't give me anything. Okay. He denies that. Okay. So, you can interpret that people are motivated by self-interest. Okay. How that is to translate into our economic behavior. So, one of the achievements of this mainstream economic theories is, and this we have to keep in mind, unless we attribute to its dominance in world affairs, okay, may not be its success, but its dominance entirely due to conspiracies. Okay. It is always easy to say that because dominant interests are served by such theories, that's why they promote. At the level of ideas, at the level of knowledge, these kind of explanations, they never hold any water. It is impossible to maintain knowledge systems on the basis of conspiracy of any section of the people. It is impossible. Ideas cannot be held captive to any section of society. It is impossible. So, short of that, okay, we must try to understand that why there is dominance of these economic ideas. Okay. It does not mean that the ideas are good, they are acceptable in every situation. But not understanding why they are dominant will make us weaker in trying to look at the better ideas. So in that sense, it is important to understand that why they are dominant. Now they are dominant because they try to portray certain aspects of human beings which we perceive happening around us everywhere. They say people are interested in their own affairs. Okay. It says that if some incentive makes people's condition, their own eyes better, okay, then those incentives work. Okay. These are some kind of general things that they talk about. So from that comes this notion of self-interested individual. Okay. That self-interested individual may be what we call consumer, who wants to get maximum satisfaction out of consumption. Okay. That consumption is not, of course, just in crude sense. It could be see, just enjoying music. It may be looking after a garden. Okay. It may be enjoying certain kind of following among the followers. Various kinds of things one can think of that. Okay. And similarly about production, that it is uh, given a concrete shape by saying that profit maximization is motive of forms. Okay. You can have variation of those things. That you can say the initial position, you can have variation of those things. And by taking these simple assumptions, okay, you can say very small set of assumptions, they show that this does, the outcome that comes from this kind of system is what is called Pareto optimal, in the way I mentioned just now. That it is impossible to improve upon that outcome in the sense that you can make somebody better off without making anybody worse off. Okay. Of course, you can make somebody better off by other system, but in the process you may be making somebody else worse off. Okay. So you can't improve in the sense of that without hurting anybody, you are able to benefit somebody. Okay. And the theory says that the system that I described just now, this leads to such outcomes which are Pareto optimal. Okay. The Pareto optimal, that means that among the desired outcomes, you should have only Pareto optimal outcomes. Okay. You can have more than one outcome which is Pareto optimal. Okay. Just to give a simple example, look at the material benefits and also assume, as we assume in economic theory, that we like more compared to less. Okay. Say 100 rupees are available. Okay. 25 rupees is given to him, 75 is given to me. Okay. If rupees themselves are, let us say, desirable in themselves, okay, in that case we can't improve upon this. Okay. If he has to be improved even to 26 rupees, I will get to 74 rupees. Okay. So I am become worse off in that sense, right? Now, on this people can take view that for society, 74-26 is better outcome compared to 25-75. But both these outcomes are such which cannot be improved upon. So you can have more than one kind of Pareto optimal outcome. Within that you may bring other criteria. You may say equality is important. Which does, as I said earlier, it does not follow from the basic economic principles alone. But you say equality is important. So even if I am hurt a little bit, the gain of somebody who was worse off, okay, we are not saying we can compare the two people. The gain of the worse off person is more important than the loss of somebody who is far superior in terms of material benefits. So society may say that we will redistribute, although both are Pareto optimal, we choose say 51-49 Pareto optimal better than 75-25. Okay. But whatever you choose, that must be one of these Pareto optimal outcomes. If without hurting anybody you can improve, then what can be logical arguments against making that improvement? So economic thought brings about these kind of things. Now, as I said that if we take it for granted that that we are selfish. We look after our interest. Okay. And we go back to our earlier example that here this transaction I gave to him and I am yet to receive my thing and he denies that I have not received it. Okay. Or he says that I have already given you what you wanted. Okay. What do you do about that? Okay. So this also is consistent with self-interested behavior. By that he gains something and he expects to gain more. Okay. So it is in that context we say that the role of institutions, economic institutions, is that you are self-interested behavior, but according to the rules of game. Okay. So you are playing, say, basketball. Okay. You are trying all your level best that you and your team wins, but you cannot commit a foul. Okay. Within those rules, you can try to snatch away, run away with the ball, and do whatever you want, but not outside the rules. So the institutions are political structures. So politics has a very important role in economics. And the kind of institutions you have, they have a great impact on the kind of outcomes you are going to. Okay. So one institution is that once you agree to this, and we go back on that, there is a contract enforcement agency is there, the courts are there, or arbitration process is there, so on and so forth. Okay. And then there is a branch of economics which says that when you have good institutions, then we will be more willing to actually come into contract. Otherwise, we will have doubt that we are saying willingly, but will he fulfill the contract or not? So, he may not even enter the contract. Okay. So, not having sound institutions is seen as one reason of poverty of many societies. Okay. In particular, people talk about property institutions that which respect the private property and so on and so forth. So, these are the kind of things that we find in the mainstream economics. Now, government's role, okay, largely should be to maintain these kind of institutions apart from some very larger things, because if a country or society is a political entity, then you may have also competition among political entities. So there is a role there also. So this is the classical role of the government that I talked about, that they must protect against the external aggression, against internal disorder, law and order that we talk about. Okay. Maintaining something which are good for societies, for example, maintaining currency, okay, and foreign relations, of course, is part of not only aggression but larger. Beyond this, there is very little role for state in the classical sense, because people know the best. If you start saying that we will take part in production, we will take part in distributing, then it is quite likely that you will do more harm than good, because people do know what is good for them. But how do you know what is good for people? Okay, over and above that. Now, this is very, very sketchy portrayal of what the mainstream economics says. On the basis you can understand many of the policies that we talk about today. Okay. From this, it also follows that the more open you are, okay, more open does not mean you have no regulations. More open does not mean you have no laws. More open means that there is a greater and greater freedom to interact, so long as you are willing to respect these contracts. Otherwise, there will be negative consequences for it. Okay. So long as you have greater and greater freedom, you will be achieving better and better economic outcomes. Okay. You can look around, whether it is FDI in retail and whole host of others, whether it is insurance sector, they are basically premised on this underlying theory, underlying thesis. Okay. This one dimension, that the individual is important, that we must base activity on individual. This in Gandhi and modern economic theory, this is certainly a common dimension. Okay. An individual is responsible, must be held responsible. We know famously that, see, Gandhi will break laws and say that I must be punished. Okay. He says that I am not breaking law, I am not evading law, I am breaking law because I am law abiding and I want to make a point. And if I am not willing to bear consequences, then I must not break the law. Okay. This is the kind of individual responsibility he has in mind. You must earn your own bread. You find throughout that you must get your own food, not somebody else. Okay, right. So this is what the individual responsibility part is there. Okay. What is then distinct in these two? Both are talking about that you should have least government. Gandhi also finds that government is essentially an oppressive instrument. Okay? Because it is enforces something from above. Okay? So he will also say that that state is the best which governs the least. Ideally, there should be no government. Okay? We may not agree. I also, for example, I don't agree with this kind of notion for reasons that as soon as you have a large society, okay, large in terms of number of people and activities, also to some extent, you have to find structures where people can coordinate with each other, nothing else. Okay. Whether you anything else or not. You call it government, you call it cooperation, you call it whatever. Okay. So in that sense, it becomes inevitable that how to maintain orderly function. Okay. That is becomes important. But there are these common threads in what we say that you must have less government rather than more. You find in Gandhi as well as in modern economics. There is emphasis on individual in both. Okay. The essential difference is when he talks about that his economics is economics of what ought to be. And hence, you don't take individual as given. Okay. Individual also emphasis on individual in terms of that you cannot realize somebody else's self. Okay. Self-realization, everybody has to go through one's own efforts, whether it is through his material being or through your fasting, whatever you may be doing. Okay. So in that sense, it is very, very individual. That you are responsible for your action, nobody else. Okay. But individual also as a part of society, when you talk about morality and ethics, then interrelationships and relationships becomes very important. That is number one. Number two is that what are your values, that becomes very important. Okay. When you say what ought to be, you are talking about the values of this individual. He is talking about that mind is restless bird. Modern economics says that so be it. Our job is to study. Okay. If it is restless, we cannot say it should not be restless. Gandhi says that if you allow it unchecked flight, then you will always have these problems. So you must do something about this restless bird. It can't be allowed to just keep flying from here to here and all the time, be troubled and finally get tired and die. Okay. So bird has to be trained. Okay. It has to be trained in morality, it has to be trained in ethics, and hence you find there is a great deal of emphasis on education. He talked about basic education, and those dimensions you can understand in the economic context as well. Okay. That makes a fundamental difference between that what is the modern economic theories, what they are telling, and what is likely to be consequence of belief in those theories, organizing our economic institution around those theories, and belief in what Gandhi is talking about. Gandhi talks about that you must limit. Okay. Modern economics says that look at the circumstances in that whatever best you can do. If you have to protect the environment, it is because over a long period that is optimal. But it remains absolutely human centered. It gives no value to in that environment at all. Ultimately, it remains there. That if you can maximize over, say, 100 years, beyond that, it is very difficult to think anymore. If you have all discount factor and so on and so forth, after 100 years, nothing has any value, even if it is 1%, 2% discount factor. The value goes down to close to zero, whatever that is. So don't worry about that. So this makes all the difference that what is the conception of man in economic activities you have. If we have to talk about the different theories, we have to begin there. And that is essentially that the way we will do the way we will justify things today. Many of things cannot be justified if you take this a different view, a ethical view, a normative view of how economic affairs should be organized and what kind of institutions are relevant for them. Institutions become important. Can be institutions which, as you are asking, I forgot your name. Aziz. Aziz. As Aziz was asking, that regulation. So today we think in terms of government, so we think in terms of regulation. Sometimes in a family, what do we do? Okay. If food is cooked, various things come. Do we say that maximum should go to me? Okay. Sometimes you have fights in the family. But what is the conception of family? That voluntarily we will say that this is how we should distribute things among ourselves. Okay. without any law, without any regulation. Okay. So you can have norms in a society. Okay. So you can have norms, you can have conventions, okay, which also limit that thus far and no further. Leave the rest to somebody else. Okay. If you are talking about regulations, we do not achieve entirely the thing. But if you are talking about modern system, perhaps regulation is the way to talk about. Okay. For example, why should somebody who is in petroleum industry also sell vegetables? This question will be asked in a society which talks about that you must be acting within your limits. Okay. Why should the same person also be selling jewelry? I am thinking of this Reliance company. Okay. So why should you be doing all these things? What motivates you to do that? Okay. This is the question to ask. Okay. When we understand those questions, okay, that what can be the framework of regulating these activities? Framework need not be law alone. It need not be taxation alone. One can think of other ways. And within that, everybody, including the money, should have flowering of their personalities, what they want to do. Okay. Is it possible to think that they do basically good to society? See, most of the people who are concerned about happening in society, inequality and so on and so forth, view that they exercise a lot of power and they do a lot of bad things. Okay. Do they have any talent that can be used for good of society? It is possible to think of that when you just change the framework of understanding economic system. Okay. Should this Satyam's former chairman, Ramlinga Raju, should it be his fate that he should end up in jail, or could he have been different from this and still contribute to society? Okay. Did he have something to contribute to society? This kind of thing, that what are those institutional economic structures in which you can realize those potentials where they will also be happy, okay, and others will also be happy in doing what they are doing. Even in many writings which critically examine Gandhian economic thought or admiringly examine Gandhian economic thought, okay, quite often you find terms like this, that this a section of people is doing to promote their own interests and not for the general good, although they claim it for the general good. Our government is favoring this and that, and so on and so forth. Okay. Gandhi opens the possibility of saying that this kind of statement, how do we understand this kind of statement? Okay. Do they know what is their good? This is the question that comes up. Okay. If we can ask that question about a person who is selling, that is the peanuts on the road, and who also gives good and bad peanuts both. Okay. At one level, what is the difference between these two? Okay. Right? This is what we have to understand. The effect may be larger in one case and maybe smaller in another case. In one case, we say that he has still not realized what he should be. There are circumstances and so on and so forth. But that is equally true for the other case as well. Okay. When we are willing to understand that the man's nature is not only selfish, it can be other things as well. Okay. I mentioned that economic theory's success partly comes that the assumptions that are made, you find manifestation of that everywhere. From your chaurastas, the way we drive, to the way we move, the way we interact with each other, everywhere you find. But we also find manifestation of other traits in human beings, which do not form the part of the basic assumptions of economic theories and economic structures. So one aspect of human nature forms the part of the economic structure and theories, but the rest, there are so many other traits of human nature or human being which do not form the part of this. Gandhi is emphasizing those parts, that there is a possibility of transformation, because we see transformation also every day, everywhere. Okay. So don't take that the selfishness is the fundamental nature which cannot be changed. Okay. So you can have other future for everybody, including they also do not realize what they are doing. That is what we want to say. Ambani and many others like that. They also do not know what they are doing. They have potential to do a lot of good, but they do not know what they are doing. So these possibilities come into the picture. Two lines I just say. One is that how to think of these institutions and how to think about the education both in terms of generating capabilities and in terms of the values that we have. Okay. They become extremely important.
Question. Only one question.
Yeah.
As far as for last 1 hour, we are discussing about the Gandhian thoughts.
Bit louder.
Yeah. Like, as of now, for the last 1 hour, we have discussed about Gandhian thoughts. And I want to know what you have achieved throughout your life. As you know, how Gandhi thoughts are ideology. Ideally, I can say that like sun rises in the east and sets in the west. That I can also say Gandhi also said the same. But ironically, what he has achieved, like he opposed the textile, like Western culture, whatever the like chatras, what you have said just now, like chatras, in our own way of doing the things instead of going through the technology. What such a kind of like Gandhi movement or something he has done. I don't remember the. I have forgot my
Yeah.
social
No,
study,
no.
but
Gandhi
he has done something. Means he has done something to the society, or he has opposed the Western culture. What kind of achievements you have done in your life?
My achievement.
Yeah, I am asking about your achievements.
Maybe he is asking the practicality of Gandhian ideologies.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
practicality as well as what Sir has achieved.
Yeah. So,
We know that we want, like, we have freedom, but we don't have freedom at the same time. If you want to go to our house, there will be lot of holes. Roads are not in a proper way. If rain comes, it will get spoiled. Like that, really, if you see the society is like that. But ideally everything is right. How we have achieved, or what we have achieved?
Uh,
probably maybe he's asking practical. I think
Yeah.
that is an individual
Yeah.
perspective which we not supposed
Yeah,
to.
it's my perspective.
So maybe so you can ask how far is it practical to implement Gandhian ideology in this maybe in this modern world right now in 2000 where liberalization and everything is going on. So how far is it practical to implement it?
so it is not an easy thing to talk about one's achievements. Okay? And especially, uh, actually, in any case, if you have very little achievements, it's very difficult to talk about it. Okay? Because then you have to start thinking about it, what are your achievements. Okay? If you have a lot of achievements, it's very difficult to think about it because I belong to first category. But if you have a lot of achievements also, then it becomes boastful to talk about them. Okay? So it is actually a difficult question to answer. If you have something very specific about that, what do you want to know about myself? See, listing achievements is.
Achievement means
I don't think that anybody.
You came here and you are encouraging us and you make us to think in Gandhian economics.
No,
Gandhian
no, I am not.
thoughts.
I am not.
That is also an achievement, I can say.
I am not attempting any such thing that you must believe in Gandhi's ideas or not. You recall what I said at the beginning, that you must think for yourself. Okay? If you find something is sound, okay, take it. If it is not sound, you must not take it, whether it is Gandhi said, in my view, whether it is Gandhi said or Buddha said also. Even then I will say that. Okay. See, so I will also just tell you that because you use the word ideology. I will not take Gandhian thought as an ideology. Okay. Ideology is something that you must have belief in, belief. Okay. Not that you have uh, made them internalize them in the sense of that you can argue to yourself that this is the right thing to do. This is the right thing, right way for things to happen. If you argue to yourself about that, that is no more an ideology. Ideology will always have some element of blind faith. There is no element of blind faith, it cannot be ideology. Okay? So, in Hindi, the word is slightly different, which does not have this problem. Ideology has this problem. Okay? Vichardhara is a flow. So that does not have this problem as term. So by achievements, there is nothing to talk. Okay? If you have any specific question around this issue, how I behave, I will be willing to share. Okay? I am not a Gandhian. I am sure that it should have been clear from the first few minutes of what I said. Okay? I do what I think is right, not what Gandhi thought is right. Okay? I don't do what Gandhi thought is right.
That makes you more Gandhian.
This is the only Gandhian thing I believe that people should have, that Gandhi followed his own path. Whom did he follow? Okay. He was influenced by many people. Gandhi is a great inspiration for me. Okay. Somebody who has thought a great deed and who has implemented those things. Most of the things that a lot of us, including me, think we are not able to implement. But Gandhi is one shining example that where you find the least, may not be zero, I do not know, but least difference between what he thought, said and did. Okay. I am certainly not that person. Okay. So I am greatly inspired by Gandhi, like by many other people also. Gandhi is not the only one. Okay. But I certainly will not follow a path because Gandhi said so. Okay. And young people also, this is why I am asking you that, think for yourself and do that. Now, you are talking about that Gandhi did so many things. What did Gandhi achieve? That is also part of your question. Right? You said that he did all this and where we are today. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, see, the outcome that you see, outcome of is always result of 1,001 things. It is never a result of one thing. So Gandhi was doing something, Nehru was doing something, people in India were doing something, all politicians were doing something. Okay, rest of the world was doing something. Okay, so it is sum total of all that. It is a very well-known fact. Okay, one can say that is a failure of Gandhi's ideas. That after government was formed in independent India, in essential sense, none of the Gandhi's ideas were taken seriously by the government. Okay. This, on the day, hardly any controversy. Nehru himself has said that we did not listen to Gandhi properly. Nehru himself said towards evening of his life, not in the beginning of the thing. He was greatly inspired by the Soviet experiment. The policies that were implemented here were inspired. They are not Soviet model. But what was implemented here was inspired by Western Fabian socialism, okay, Soviet experiment, and parts of the whatever technology. He was greatly impressed by technology. Okay. Some of those institutions exist today that he has great faith in IITs. Okay. They also came in that process on. Okay. So, of course, he was as much inspired by his patriotic feelings as anybody else, but he did not believe in Gandhi's ideas. As simple as that. Okay. Gandhi also did not believe that his ideas should be followed because they are his ideas. Okay. It is also well known that he accepted Nehru as his heir. He accepted knowing that Nehru has a totally different ideas. Okay. Society must find its own place ultimately. Okay. So you can say Gandhi's ideas failure is that government did not take them. Okay. But if they have not been implemented at all, then how do you expect those kind of outcomes to be there? Those outcomes may not happen even if they are implemented. We do not know. Okay. If they are implemented, also we might have been in a bad shape. Okay. But that we will not know. That is what we say counterfactual question. If they are implemented, we still have that situation. If they are not implemented, you can still have hope that this has chance. Let us look at the other thing, whether that has also a chance. Can we implement the same way as Gandhi was talking? Perhaps not. Okay. Society has not remained same. Perhaps you'll have to rethink that some of the ideas, what do they mean today? Self-sufficiency for villages mean a single village. Suppose you believe in that idea. Or should it be a constellation of 20 villages now, today? Where perhaps they can have 80% self-sufficiency. Maybe one village cannot have today. So we will have to creatively think about if we believe that where we are going is not right. Okay. Larger question is that what makes it possible that some people can become super rich and some people don't have enough to get also. Okay. Is it because they are given by government, or is it inherent in the way our institutions, that is the system we have. Okay. Somebody talked about taxes and subsidies. See, if you talk only in those terms, then it will transpire that rich are taxed. Even though taxes are reduced, they still give and poor receive subsidies. Okay. Even if it is small, they still receive. So one is giving and one is still taking. Okay. So it is not that you are taking away from poor and giving to rich. Ostensibly you are not doing that. Okay. I think more fundamental question is that if you just confine to taxes subsidies, that fundamental question will not be raised. More fundamental question is that how come some people became so rich and some people remain poor. Okay. Does the idea that you can be active up to this extent, no more. Okay. Above that, whatever you do has to be for society. Will that idea bring about a better way of naturally distributing things in society? These are kind of things, rather than taxing and then distributing, in which you are leaking bucket going upstairs and leaking bucket coming down. We can easily say that all politicians are corrupt. But do we believe that they can also be improved? I think that is an important question. See, tomorrow somebody else will be politician. Important question is that. If we can think that I can be improved, that I can have good ideas, why should one believe that politicians will always be corrupt? That is important.
You made a point without hurting benefit. So can you just explain like what you really meant by that? Because business economics all about March ka pachas or something like that. So some people are hurting, others not. So
Not necessarily. I will give a very simple example. Okay. This typical example that you can find. Okay. See, I have, let us say, 5 guavas. You have 5 bananas. Okay. Now, if both of us have a mix of guavas and bananas, okay, then see, if I have 2 bananas and 3 guavas, I feel happier compared to having just 5 guavas. Is it conceivable that a mix of these two will be better than just having guavas alone? This is conceivable. You can't think that somebody may like variety of fruits compared to just having one kind of fruit. You can't think of that. Can you think of what I am saying first? That I have 5 guavas. Suppose as opposed to 5 guavas, I had 3 guavas and 2 bananas. That I feel better off. Is it possible to think of that? I have 2 cups of tea and no samosa. As opposed that I have 1 cup of tea and 1 samosa. That I like second option better than first. Is it conceivable to you? Look, you are not willing to say yes or no. Where I go, you forget about that. I am trying to explain to you that in a transaction that one must necessarily lose. You are saying that right now. I am giving example. So you must listen to me, and if you are not going to participate, then this I will have to talk to everybody else only. Okay. Doesn't matter. Is it possible for you to think that I am having 2 cups of tea as opposed to that I have 1 cup of tea and 1 samosa? That second option is better for me? Second is better, okay. So you have the same kind of thing, let us say, okay. You prefer 1 cup of tea and 1 samosa better than 2 samosas. Okay. You are having 2 samosa, I am having 2 cups of tea. We exchange 1 samosa for 1 tea. And both of us are better off. Nobody has lost anything. Both of us are actually even better off with the same amount of goods in society. Okay. So there can be gains from trade for everybody concerned. Okay. It does not mean that in every trade it is happening. Okay. It's possible that in some trade there is one person loser and other person gainer. That is possible. But saying that it has to happen is a not understanding what is happening. Okay. So it is not necessary that if I have made 50 rupees and you have made only 5 rupees from something, okay, both are starting with 0. Okay, I have benefited more, you have benefited less, but both of us have benefited. So in the creative world, what we say in games here is zero-sum game. It is not zero-sum game. It is zero-sum game where the total of actions is 0. So if somebody gains, somebody else has to lose. Or what is a constant sum game. But most of the economic games are not zero-sum games. Okay? They are expanding pies. In the expanded part, Somebody may get more, somebody may get less. It is also possible that in the expended time, somebody gets absolutely less, another gets not only relatively more, absolutely more, but also relatively more. Okay. That is possible. It is not impossible. But what you are saying is not necessary. Okay. Even then we will say that somebody getting 5 and another getting 50 is not a good idea. He can take a moral position on that. Okay. Irrespective of factual position, we can still take a moral position that this will lead to a lot of problems in society. And that is where in economy start bringing this ought to ethical dimension as the integral part of economics. Okay. As of now, we don't have it. Okay.
While reading one of the quotes said by Gandhiji about self-sustenance of villages, he mentioned about oceanic circles.
Yes.
I would like to understand more what he meant by that oceanic circles.
See, idea of oceanic circles is he discussed about the village-based society. Okay. Is that these structures are not hierarchical structures. Okay. In ocean that you have concentric circles, they just move out. Okay. So, if we talk in the context of Swadeshi, about these ideas, that you start from your village, okay, from yourself, family, village, okay, then your district, etc. And you can reach out to the world. But your focus should be there. And all these things you can conceptualize as oceanic circles without thinking them at different levels, higher levels. It is not that the world is at a higher level compared to your village. Okay? If you are having village-based society, others are also like village. Then you can have even various circles which meet each other at the same level. So, as opposed to hierarchical structures, we are talking about the structure at the same level. And village society makes it more easily possible than, say, urban-based society, where you have now our political structure is obviously hierarchical. Okay. Although you talk about federal structure, the center is most powerful that you have state, and of course local bodies' power is negligible. In spite of 73rd, what is 73rd?
73rd and 74th.
74th amendment, constitutional amendment, in spite of that. Okay.
Okay, we can say that generally the Western school of thought is more individualistic school of thought, and the Eastern morality, considering India, is more of socialist, more communist school of thought. But how much of the more individualistic school of thought is entering into India right now? I mean, how much of this Gandhian philosophy can we say is dying or
Yeah. First part, I don't accept that. That Western is more individualistic than Indian. You look at individualistic. That it is more individualistic West than India, in my view, is not correct. Okay. If you look at the social pronouncements for thousands of years, you find a great deal of emphasis on individual. Okay. I think what you have for us in mind is that maybe it may need to be established, but that it is more atomistic. Individuals as if they exist entities in themselves. So we have a great deal of individualism here. Okay. You look at people around. Okay. In fact, if you go around in the world and if you have to look at the archetypal example of a Swiss man, okay, you may find more of them in India today. Adam Smith man I'm talking about. Okay. You find more of them. Okay. The behavior that way it is described. Okay. I think difference is that atomistic, when we have that notion, when we are thinking that they are existing by themselves. Individual can still be in relation to everybody else. So this is how I will be seeing that in India we have always had emphasis on individual, but always in relation to everybody else. Not as atoms. Never as atoms. Okay. And in that sense only you can say that there is a greater social element. Okay. We have never thought in socialistic terms, in the way socialistic terms is understood. You will not find. In fact, Gandhi talks about that. Okay. That that I am this much of socialist to accept this. Okay. That some industries, if they have to be like single machine you talked about. So somebody has single machine is fine, but you allow the factory to make single machine. That cannot be made in a cottage. So he said, I am socialistic enough that this can be done by the government, public sector. He talks about that. Okay. So, but he is not socialist at all. I can tell you. You just read my socialism. There is one small article called My Socialism also Gandhi. Okay. But his idea of socialism is nothing to do with the socialism as we understand. Okay. He does not believe in any classes. Okay. They are descriptive categories. They are not social categories the way in socialistic understanding you will have that. Okay. You can have descriptive categories like saying that the cereals and pulses, a descriptive category. You have certain kind of things that come under that. Same way, you can say it's a class of women. This is not class analysis in the terms of the production relations, so to say, right? So, in India, we are not socialistic in that sense. In fact, most of the programs of production which involve any collectivization have been utter failures. They have been tried and utter failures. Okay. We have talked about community things, say, in distant past in India. Okay. Community things come in terms of restricting what you can do, what you cannot do. Whether you can sell your land or not, for example. As far as production is concerned, even 2000 years ago, plots would have been assigned to people. Not that you have collective farm at any point, cooperative or anything. So, socialistic spirit in that sense of the way it is understood. Look, okay. But the sense of caring for every member of society. Yes, if you are saying in that sense that you must care for every member of society, that nobody should be left to fend for themselves. There must be institutions, and they are certainly in various ways. Our society has been having that value that you must care for them. In reality, we have not always been like that. But those values have been there that you must care for every member of society. This is what Gandhi is also talking about. The system should be such that nobody is poor. Not that you is poor. Can we make that system? When he says more is given to some people and less to some, it is not that somebody is taking it. It is again in the sense that the way we organize ourselves, some people have opportunity to get lots more than others. There are many things we can talk about in that context, that in what way we control or regulate, as Aziz said, that regulate our entitlement to resources. Can be an unlimited entitlement to resources. A developer can have thousands of acres, and some people have not 1 acre, but land is only one kind of resource. You can have other kind of resources. The resources which are not created by man, can we have limits on access to them? I'm just giving one example. So suppose we have that, perhaps the system that will evolve will make sure nobody is poor, at least. And those are very much part of what we should have. So in that sense, I agree. The second thing is that I agree that I also feel that Indian individualism is being replaced with the more atomistic kind of thing. It is happening, but it is never too late. See, collectively, you cannot do that by laws and things like that alone. We have to also evolve informal institutions whereby we say we decide to do this. I'll just give one example, not of the same kind. We have seen lot of articles, some movements against Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola, okay. Now, personally, I feel that I can't understand that why should anybody want to have Coke. Personally, I can't understand. Okay. Because it doesn't seem to have any value of any kind, except negative values. Okay. Apart from the damage they are doing to where they produce, their local ecosystem. Apart from that, something which has no value, because you do this purposive action, that you drink water when you are thirsty and so on and so forth. The here you do just for taste, nothing else. And taste also, first time if you do in your life, perhaps you will not find taste also. Cultivate that taste. But I will say that if you don't consume Coca-Cola, it will anyway wind up. Are we not able to change ourselves to do that? Instead of saying that we ban it. We need always legal first. By that I don't mean that for nothing we should have legal options. Okay. The reason for the last thing is that however enlightened we may be, at individual level, our thinking can go only this far. Number one. Number two, certain actions are not possible at individual level. For example, agricultural research, you cannot have village level at individual level because farmers are very many. So for something you will have to think of that. Roads, if you need roads in society, individuals cannot build their own roads. Okay. So there are areas where you will require collectivity to function. This cities, you were mentioning about that roads get washed away every day. Okay. If civic amenities have to be maintained, this cannot be by individuals. Okay. So there are things, but there are many other things where with our choice we can make clear to people that this is not wanted. Okay. And that includes these values also. Okay. Do we care as much? I think we used to care much more for our children. This Sweden episode of what, Norway, that episode aside, you have aberrations anywhere, but I think we still care that we should leave something behind for children. Uh, I am sure that we still care much more for our old people compared to many other societies. So relationship is still there. It's not that it is gone. We do find horrible examples. Sometimes start having films like Baba. I don't think that is typical portrayal of reality, even today. But yes, we do have. So there's relationship being important among individuals. But we still take responsibility for our actions. Individual means that.
The mic is not.
Oh, it is not.
In your
Good.
last example,
No, no, mic is working. I mean, I'm saying till the.
Yes.
in your last example, you mentioned that because of tourism to Samosa, if the economy is fixed with that, but our GDP is growing, wealth is adding, and that's not the people is also growing
Yes.
drastically.
Yes.
It doesn't mean that the number of samosas or the number of tables are growing.
It means that they are growing, yes.
So then how will the zero sum economy?
It will not be. I said that only. The pie is growing, or you can say samosa and teas are growing. And in the additional thing, everybody may be getting more. But some people may be getting larger share of the extra thing compared to others. That is possible. But everybody may be getting more. It is also possible that in the process of pie growing, some people are actually getting less. That is also possible. Okay. If you look at economy or any society as large as India, okay, poorest of poor still you may find that is in as bad condition as that person was in the 50 years ago, in spite of all the progress. Now, ideally we should not have that. But you cannot base the evaluation of society simply on that. If somebody is just alike, will be in the same bad condition at any point of time. So as Gandhi said that you must, if you have seen that person, you must think of that person, as was mentioned earlier. And we must do what we can as a society for them. However, saying that you can ensure in a society nobody will ever commit suicide, for example. Who can say that this will happen? We must have the situations and institutions where the reasons for that are eliminated. Okay. But saying completely that you can actually guarantee it will not happen. I cannot conceive of that you can actually guarantee. Okay. So pie is growing if growth is there, and there will be uneven sharing of that. So even if everybody has benefited, even if the poor has not lost, even then on one dimension, namely that there is a gap which has increased. On that dimension we may still be unhappy. If we care, Gandhi did not care too much about this gap, let me tell you that also. Okay. Not that he was not for equality, he was. But he was more for the equality of that how every individual in society, not in material terms, okay, the person is respected for what that person is as human being, not as how many houses and how many cups of tea or samosas he is able to afford. Okay. A rickshawala should not have a less prestige than a university professor for that matter. Can we have that kind of value in society? Equality On top of that, nobody should be in climbing poverty. He says that don't think that I am saying that I require a very great deal of redistribution because people are so poor also. But once you are assured that a dignified living level of material prosperity for everyone, after that some people become millionaires. Does not matter, it is their problem actually. Yes, sir. Why should it be our problem? If somebody feels that unless you have $100 million worth of house, you cannot be happy, that person must be the most deprived person in this country. Okay. Cannot be a very happy person. How can you imagine that a person wants $100 million worth of house? Okay. Where some 5, 6 floors should be only for the vehicles. Okay. We have person like this in this country. Right? Okay. So there is no need to be envious about that. Suppose he did not have a house, will not make any dent on the poverty in the country. That will happen on the various aspects of the way you organize our society. Not because of that person. That person is doing because he is mentally, they are depraved persons basically. They think that they are not doing only for the comfort. They are showing off. Showing off is what? Somewhere you feel deficient. Okay? So, we can have that. But in general, equality is good because everybody should be cared for, including Ambani also should be cared for by society. Not only poor. And they should be also learn that what they are doing is not that it is bad for others, which it is, some of it. It is also bad for themselves. That's why they should also have possibility to transform themselves.
Sir, one question. Once upon a time, we don't have rupee. We used to have exchange things like products like I will give you one kilo of rice. You give me like exchange, just exchange.
Yeah, barter. We say barter.
I don't know about the name. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Uh, Now, after discovering rupee, like at that time also rupee is a very valuable thing. My father or my grandfather used to say that with 1 rupee we can buy 12 like share ante telsa?
Share.
Yeah, share. 12 share of uh, like rice we can buy. Like no 12, yeah, something like that.
Right.
Used to say like that. Now with 1 rupee we cannot feed
50
a
grams.
beggar also.
50 grams of rice you can buy.
No, that's okay. We cannot feed that thing. See, really, what we have gained with that, like what this is a virtual money. Basically, I can say like
This
this
is
is a
an easy
virtual
question
thing.
to answer.
This is a virtual money daily, like the price of the product, like land. You can see from just in 5 years, it is getting 500 times or 10,000 times or 10,000 times. It's increasing. What kind of regulations we can do so that the value of our money should not depreciate?
This is an easy question to answer. This is not very difficult question to answer because this is a very standard thing in economics that you will have. Okay? See, hello. Okay, so my only concern is that I may not be heard. Otherwise, it's okay.
Yeah.
I
That mic is
have very bass voice, not very loud. It doesn't go very far.
also this is little bit open area.
Hello. Hello. Hello.
That's okay. We can it's not.
Yeah. Anyway, when it works, it is fine. Till
I
that
want
time.
your opinion.
Until that time. See, this idea that we had barter economy, that is goods exchanging for goods. Yeah. For Indian society, this is not a correct idea for large part of society. I am not saying for every part. See, what was happening in my own childhood, I have taken grains and got ice cream. What we used to call ice cream, of course, it was only, what do you call this, there was no cream. It's all right. See, so I have actually practiced this. Not only I have been told by my parents and anybody, I also practice this. Okay. Now this is partly barter. Okay. If you look at wheat or rice, this is very finely divisible. Okay. You can have one fistful of rice, right? You can have a quintal of rice, you can have a ton of rice, and so on and so forth. But it is not that for everything you are exchanging things for things. Okay. So for a farmer it is easy because you are having this kind of grain. But somebody who is a herdsman, sheep owner, what is the sheep owner going to do? He wants salt. Wants salt. What do we do? What will that sheep owner do? He cannot exchange salt for the sheep.
He can only sell sheep.
Sell sheep to get what? He cannot exchange sheep
Vegetables,
for
whatever leaves.
even vegetables.
Yeah, whatever it.
See, that means that every day you have to sell sheep.
Yeah.
And he must be very, very rich sheep. What a shepherd then. Extremely rich shepherd if he is able to. Point is that in this case you can view this rice as rupee. Okay. The point I am trying to emphasize is that this becomes a medium of exchange. So what sheep person will also do is, perhaps he will sell some sheep, buy rice, and other things he will do with the rice. Suppose this metal rupee is not there or paper rupee is not there. So in that case, this rice is serving the function of rupee as far as the business is concerned. Okay. So for everyday affairs, this is what you do. So this I also realized much later when I started studying this thing, that is not truly barter. You are not exchanging commodities for commodities. So I take this to the next shop, I buy some little sweet, coffee or whatever, okay, or ice cream, etc. But it is, my area is this wheat growing area in Ravi, and it used to grow in Makai. Jawar Bazar, little bit, not much, is in UP. Okay. So this is what you used to take. Okay. Of course, there are rupees also. That there are none, but everyday affair in village will be on that basis. But these two grains or three grains serve as the common medium exchange within the village. Okay. So they are in place of. Okay. So it is not a true barter that commodities exchange for other commodities. It is not true barter in that sense. True barter is extremely difficult to implement in any evolved, slightly evolved state of society also. So most things are not divisible that finely. And your requirements are, they are not always that I have sheep, you have cow, let us exchange. Every requirements are different. Okay. Second question is that what happened when rupee came. Okay. Rupee facilitated this process further. Okay. In your grandfather's time, they could go with the half paisa also. Maybe half pi or half paisa they might have given. So it is less than fistful of the grains. Because you have to have a standard measure then. See, you may have rice, you may have wheat, whatever, but you may have to find a way that for this commodity you are getting right amount of rice, right amount of grain or not. Some measure of that. Once you say rupee, somebody has put a stamp on that it does have the amount of value it is supposed to. Government has put a stamp. On the basis of the faith in government has backed this rupee, we use it. So it is greatly facilitated. In that sense, it increases economic activity enormously. That is the role of rupee coming into it. Okay. Now this idea that in 1 rupee, roughly 12 kilos of rice your grandfather could buy, and now we can buy 50 grams. Okay. That in itself is not most important. That is what you have to realize. Even today saying that rupee's value has gone down to 55 rupees for a dollar. Okay. By itself it is neither problem, nor it is a matter of happiness. What it does to our actual economic system, that is the only way we can see. On average, do we have more things today than your grandfather's time or not? That is important we understand. And certainly, although you may buy 50 grams of rice with 1 rupee, the amount of rupee we have, most of us, is much more than 1 rupee equivalent of today. Okay. So in that sense, actually we are doing material much better. This in itself is not very important. Introduction of rupee does many other things in society, which are not always happening. For example, the amount of concentration it makes possible is far easier today than when rupee was not there. Okay. So it does other things also. So large number of things it does is actually good in terms of increasing material prosperity. Okay. So currency facilitates, and currency is only one kind of money. In economy, we talk about other kinds of money. Do you have bank account?
Yeah.
Okay. So you have some money in bank, but they are not rupees. They are just number. Okay. Okay. You can simply go if you have card and you pay through card. You are not giving any even paper. You don't give. Even paisa you don't give. Okay. It just gets adjusted there electronically. Okay. But that is also money. So they all facilitate more. Now you have saved time of going to bank, taking out money, then going to shop. So this raises what I said earlier, efficiency of system. Some things which are not producing any value in itself, they can be avoided, and you can directly go to productive activities. So they do this facilitate. But negative part is that the way these things function, financial system, they can make enormous inequalities possible. Enormous amount of inequalities possible. See, imagine, take my case. Imagine that I was paid in wheat, okay, not in rupees. So my monthly salary, every month, how many card loads will become? Everybody can see that so many card loads go to this person's house, and somebody is not getting even one bag full of this. Okay, it will become so obvious that there is an inequality there. But if it is being credited into account, well, how do we know that we are worth what we are in that sense? So both sides are there. This does create how to overcome these kind of negative consequences. We are not worked enough on that. There are this taxation, public policy, what is the public finance. There are those things there, but they are not. I think at fundamental level, theoretical level also we have to make some changes. They are hard things. I am also not up to the task, although I have been thinking about these things. A lot of people have to work on it. But I think we should be concerned about the issue that you are raising. Inflation creates problems, but it is not that you are having things more expensive. Okay? If you are paying more, somebody else is getting more. In turn, are you also getting more in something or other?
Yeah.
If that happens, there is not much problem. Someday it happens that some people get lot more and some people get not that much more. Okay? So inequality increases. Inflation has those kind of problems. But in terms of, see, you must be hearing that inflation there, our real GDP is growing, say, at 6%. Okay. We are unhappy about that because it is not growing at 9%. Real GDP means after adjusting for inflation. What does it mean that whether inflation is there or not? The real goods and services produced are more today than last year. So it is not that in real terms we are doing worse. Okay. We are not increased as much as we thought that we are now on 9% growth path. That is after adjusting for inflation. Okay. So, but inflation has problems also of other kind. It has problem of distribution, as I said. If I get more in the increase and he does not get that much more, relatively we have lost. In real terms, he might have lost and I may have gained. That is also possible. Okay. It also has effect on the economy in terms of uncertainties. That is a different, we can go into that issue separately. It has those kind of things. Per se, 1 rupee 12 kilo and 1 rupee 50 gram is not significant. Over a long period of time, it is not significant. Okay? That we should keep in mind. More rupees can be printed, what is the problem? If rupee is a problem, we have printing press with the Reserve Bank of India. Print more. That is not the issue. However, actual production of goods, the samosas and computers and so on and so forth, how it is available to all, it is produced more and it is available to all or not. Second question is far more problematic. We still have a lot of people who don't get enough in spite of material production. Those structures is what we have to do. And I think Gandhi's ideas can perhaps help. They continue emphasis on those ideas. Okay. So if we do take him seriously, at least we will start working on those structures and institutions. Okay. That is a
My question is how, what is your opinion in regulating the
Inflation,
yeah.
regulating inflation. It should be regulated as the economics says.
Yes, you said like inequalities are there. One may be getting more and one may be getting less. Like that, richer are become richer day by day and poorer are become poorer day by day. Yeah,
No,
yeah,
no,
you
that
said
is not.
like
That is not.
inflation.
That is not. See, this any statement, I think on rhetoric level we cannot accept. Richer is becoming richer day by day is largely true. Okay. Some rich may not be richer, but largely
Yeah,
it is
and
true.
richer
But poor
become
is becoming
richer
poorer.
than
This
even.
part is not true. Some poor may have become poorer, but you take poor people of yesterday as a collectivity, that they have become poorer. There is nothing to show that. There is absolutely no evidence of that. Okay. So poor has become poor. See, this is a rhetoric that we find in newspapers.
No, no, no.
They are worthy of that and nothing more.
There are some evidences like in last session
Yeah.
we have a Ramanjane garu.
Yeah.
What he said is like for preparing 1 quintal of rice, farmer is spending 2,400 rupees. But while government is giving him 1,100 or 1,200 rupees, is he becoming poorer or richer? Tell me. It's
See, I'll tell you
it's a
something.
practical evidence. I am not saying
There
it's
is only one related to only
See,
agriculture.
no, not only like more
No, no,
people are
no.
from agriculture only are poor. Right?
Yeah, yes. So the thing is that anecdotal evidences are just that. They draw our attention to some problem. But we must be always see from where we have got the information that it is cost is 2,400 rupees and 1,100 rupees given. From where we have got this information?
Uh,
I
from-
talked to 10 farmers, perhaps it is true for them. I'm not saying that it is wrong data, but that is still anecdotal data. Is it on average is true? Okay. See, Ramanjanelu is a very active, okay, he believes in his cause and rightly so, what he's talking about. See, it does not mean that every statement that you come across, you should not examine that. Okay. It is also possible in some period that farmers as a whole, okay, they are not being able to hold on to what they have. Okay. We have, I used to be associated with a Hindi magazine long ago when I was still doing my BTech called Mazdoor Kisan Niti. There is a series of articles about agriculture being a loss-making proposition. Okay. What does it mean? You have to understand. That means that one does not get enough for one's effort. If you take into my account my say 1 day's labor at the prevailing wages, then this becomes a loss-making proposition. So say 2,400 rupees for every day's work also we count for that. Other way of looking at it is that what? That the paid out costs I subtract from what I get and remaining I divide over my work. So other way of saying is that actually I am getting very poor wages out of that. I am getting nothing for my management. As a farmer I am also managing. Okay. So what one is saying is that it is a this policy, whatever is the policy he was talking about, I suppose, has led to very adverse circumstances for farmers. If farmers have been making, as I have also mentioned, 30 years ago, 35 years ago, we had whole series of articles from Punjab in this same magazine with the data of whatever data they collected. If they have been making losses all these many years, how many farms which are rich can survive? You tell me. Yeah. This is logically a thing to argue that you have been making loss every year. Can you keep getting loans all through your life and you are making losses? If I have nothing and you know, will you give me loan? You may give me loan, taking pity on me, saying that, well, if it is lost, it is lost. But what it can, so I think we should just go a little deeper and see whether literally it can be true or not. Okay. It should not take away from the plight of this section. See, we should not go to the other extreme that everything is fine. But thinking that actually they are becoming poorer for farmers as a class is also not true. Okay. There are farmers who would have become poorer. I am saying again that there will be people who have actually become poorer. But as a class, poor people have become poorer. The evidence for that is really not there. But this is not very important for this.
Yeah, yeah.
Rich have become richer. Absolutely, there is no doubt about it.
Yeah.
Poor may not have become richer, but they as a class have not become. Class in the sense that I am saying, category. As a class, they have not become poor. Absolutely, there is not much doubt about that. There are periods within that. See, maybe 2, 3 years, and they like this is going to a drought here, as appears now. Not Andhra Pradesh,
Some areas
but
in Karnataka.
a large number of areas in the country. They are going to be in a serious, difficult situation, and rest of society, maybe through government. Okay, this is what makes society. That we should be able to take care of that. If not individually, in collectivities. Maybe government represent that collectivity. Okay. Maybe they can increase some taxes also for the people like us. Okay. And if they are able to do that, that is what makes society. That they should take care of that. So there will be individual times when this is happening. Okay. Saying that so many farmers are committed suicide is also a symptom of a problem. You think that poor farmers are only in Maharashtra and Andhra Pradesh, not in Bihar?
Everywhere.
But Bihar, they are not committing suicide. See, I think the reasons for these phenomena are, we cannot say, we do not have proper analysis, that is the problem.
Regulation.
It is not poverty alone, people have been poor in many times, in many ways. There are a lot of things happening at social level. Maybe relations are breaking, as young lady they were saying. Maybe relation between those who are giving loans and those that they are in difficulty, you should not abuse them. If that kind of thing is no more there. Maybe even the banks and MFI institutions, they send their people with a lathi. And more than anything else, people don't like humiliation. Even poor people don't like humiliation. So it's not just poor. Yeah, so many other things that are happening also. And I think we have to develop a better understanding of that. It does not take away anything from the highlighting of the problem. Okay, I do not know what the Ramanjan will talk, but the problem is highlighting. I have no doubt that is a very real problem. Okay. The examples can relieve us. The problem is talking about the kind of agriculture we are having, kind of policies we are having. On that, we should be seriously thinking about. Okay. So we should not take away from that aspect. I am saying that because you should not think that. Let us not think about that. Okay.
ఒక ప్రాణాన్ని కాపాడలేదు గాంధీ సిద్ధాంతాలు తాత్కాలికంగా పాటించుకోవడం మంచిది.
Somebody will have to translate.
Oh, sorry.
No, no, it's okay.
Okay. Uh,
Come back to the.
okay. In case there is somebody is doing some at the time
Somebody is.
somebody is somebody is fighting and trying to kill him. At that time, we are Gandhiji, who is followers. They are breaking these Gandhi rules and fighting with them to save the who is the person. To save him, the Gandhi followers breaking these Gandhi rules is good or not? Because of without saving a person, Gandhiji morals also is not good for us. That's why it's good or not? What is the final solution?
Yeah. Final solution, whether I can tell you or not, I do not know. But see, again, you can find examples in Gandhi's articles and his stands also on various things. Now, see, remember that he himself took part in Boer War in South Africa. Okay. He was not fighting. He was a nurse there. Okay. But he was on the British side. Of course, that was at a very young age. He was perhaps in his 30s when he took part in this. So, not only that, in First World War, or First European War, whatever you want to call it, he that time also supported British efforts, okay, saying that we are loyal citizens, so we must do that. Of course, we want that the way they are doing is wrong. So, this absolute faith in non-violence. I think non-violence itself has to be understood slightly more deeper. Okay. Now, see, for example, he was great, in some sense, devotee of Gita. Of course, he took Gita's, whatever is said there, in allegorical way, not in literal way. He did not take it as a physical war. He took that war within, between evil and good. But all said and done, the way the Mahabharata is described, there is a lot of killing and etc. I have not heard him talk against that. So in fight between good and evil, okay, sometimes things do go violent. If you are trying to save among the various ways, if you have to commit this physical, literal sense violence, it is very difficult to say in all circumstances. Can't you say that you don't do it? In fact, he also said that it is better to fight physically than be coward. Suppose these two people are fighting, and I know that say he is aggressor and he is victim. And in the process, in this process, I feel that by my life, this injustice can be saved, and I am willing to give my life. I just stand in between. Gandhi may say that is a higher order commitment to opposing injustice. I do not have that courage, it's possible. I may restrain him physically, in the process I may give him, may not kill him, but may beat him also. So we should not take it literally, number one. Number two is physical violence. He gives example that mother, sometimes beat child. Okay. Mother beat child because the other child burned the hand. So what is the thing that genuinely motivates you is as much part of the understanding of non-violence as the actual violence. Right. So I don't think that I have given you answer that is straight and clear because it is a difficult question to answer. But my own position will be that not having any physical injury on other is not absolute meaning of non-violence. Sometimes physical injury may be also inflicted, and that may be in the cause of non-violence. There is also intention that you have. It's not just the actual physical deed that is. The total deed is physical deed as well as intention. So in this case, we are fighting for oppressed. First thing is that you can do without physical violence. If nothing else is instead of being coward, if you fight and risk your own life, I think Gandhi would have supported that rather than doing that. Most of us, I do not know whether I will do that. Most of us are not able to do either of that. We can build our character to have at least most often we can do that. Not always.
Thank you, sir, for a enlightening talk. Actually, I'm sure all of you would agree that we have, enriched ourselves by listening to him. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I would request Ajit to please come and present a small memento on behalf of one as a gesture of our gratitude. Please. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The best moment I had in introduction is you have already given me the best gift by inviting me to talk.
Really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
I want to ask like one organization. It's not related to any. Look like